Once upon a time, in a kingdom bustling with chatter and clinking coins, there lived a humble miller who loved to boast. He boasted about his bread, the finest in the land, his donkey, the fastest four-hooved creature alive, and his cat, who, he claimed, could outpurr any other. But of all his boasts, the one that soared highest was about his daughter, Elsie.
"Elsie, my dear,"
he'd say, puffing out his chest.
"you spin straw into gold, don't you?"
Elsie, who was clever and kind, would chuckle and play along, spinning her imaginary gold as the villagers oohed and ahed. One fateful day, as luck would have it, or perhaps misfortune, the king rode through the village. The miller, seeing his chance to shine, stepped boldly before the royal procession and proclaimed his most daring boast yet.
"Your Majesty,"
he called, sweeping a grand bow.
"my daughter can spin straw into gold."
The king, whose treasury was lighter than he liked, raised an eyebrow.
"Is that so?"
He mused, intrigued by the prospect of such a skill.
"Bring her to the castle. If she spins straw into gold by morning, she shall be richly rewarded. If not..."
He left the threat hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. Elsie was whisked away to the castle, her heart a fluttering bird inside her chest. The king led her to a room piled high with straw, a spinning wheel at its center, and a candle its only light.
"Spin all this straw into gold by sunrise,"
the king declared,
"and you shall become my queen. Fail, and well, let's hope you succeed."
His laugh echoed off the stone walls as he locked the door behind him. Poor Elsie. She sat at the spinning wheel, her hands shaking. She could spin wool into yarn, sure, but straw into gold? That was only in her father's tales. As the candle flickered, casting shadows that danced like mocking spirits, Elsie's eyes filled with tears. Suddenly, with a pop like a cork flying from a bottle, a strange little man appeared. He was no taller than a broomstick and had a wisp of a beard that sparkled as if sprinkled with stardust.
"Why do you cry, my dear?"
he asked, his voice a tinkling bell. Elsie sniffled, wiping her eyes.
"I must spin this straw into gold by morning, or I dread to think what will happen,"
hummed the little man, stroking his chin.
"What will you give me if I spin it for you?"
"My necklace,"
Elsie said, removing the locket that dangled from her neck, its charm shining with the warmth of cherished memories.
"It's a deal,"
said the man with glee. And with that, he set to work, his fingers moving so fast they were but a blur. Wheel whirred, straw twirled, and with each flick and spin, golden threads began to pile in silken heaps around them. By dawn, the room shimmered with gold. The king's jaw dropped when he saw the wealth before him. Greed glinted in his eyes.
"Amazing. But one room of gold may be a fluke,"
he pondered aloud.
"Let's see if you can do it again."
Elsie was taken to another room, even larger, filled with more straw. The door was locked again, and she was left alone, the daunting task looming over her like a mountain. Once more she despaired, and once more the little man appeared.
"What will you give me this time?"
he asked, eyes twinkling with mischief.
"I have only my ring."
Elsie replied, sliding the simple band of silver off her finger.
"Done."
And like a whirlwind of magic, he spun straw into glimmering gold until sunrise, when the king returned, his smile wide and hungry for wealth.
"Marvelous. But there is one last test,"
he said, his voice as smooth as the silk in his royal robes. The largest room in the castle was filled to the brim with straw, and Elsie's heart sank. No one could turn so much straw into gold, not in 100 years. As night fell, she heard the key turn in the lock and saw the mountain of straw that mocked her. But for the third time, the peculiar man appeared as her tears began to fall.
"What will you give me this time?"
he queried, cocking his head to the side.
"I have nothing left to give,"
Elsie said, her voice a whisper of defeat.
Then promise me your firstborn child when you are queen.
said the little man, his eyes narrowing. Elsie shuddered, the weight of the promise as heavy as iron. But what choice did she have? With a reluctant heart and hope that fate would be kind, she agreed. Night turned to day, and the little man weaved his enchantment, turning straw into a dazzling display of gold that outshone the morning sun. The king, overjoyed, declared Elsie his new queen, and her life in the castle began. Days turned into months, and the memory of the odd little man faded like mist in the morning light. Elsie, now queen, welcomed a son, a prince with a laugh like music and eyes like the clear blue sky. But happiness is a fragile thing, and it was on a day of celebration that the little man returned, stepping out from the shadows with his hand extended.
I've come for what you promised,
he said, a grin slicing across his face. The queen begged and pleaded, her heart thudding against her ribs like a drum.
Please, there must be some way I can keep my child.
The little man, who loved a good game, tapped his foot.
I'll give you 3 days,
he declared.
If by the end of the 3rd day you can guess my name, you shall keep your child.
And so, the game began. The queen sent messengers throughout the kingdom to gather names from the cobblestone streets to the whispering forests. Each day, she would present the little man with a list as long as a dragon's tail, but each time he would shake his head, his laughter mocking.
No, that's not my name.
As the 2nd day waned and the queen grew more frantic, the challenge seemed impossible. How could she ever learn the name of a man as mysterious as a riddle wrapped in an enigma? On the 3rd day, Elsie's heart was a nest of fluttering birds. Each beat a chirp of worry. The castle seemed to echo with the sound of her pacing as she went through names she had never heard spoken before.
Could his name be Applegrath? Zephyrius? Marmaduke?
But in her heart, she knew these were not the names to unlock the riddle. As the sun began to set on the 3rd and final day, a stroke of luck changed her fate. Her most loyal knight returned from his quest with a curious tale. He told her of a strange little man he saw in the woods, dancing around a fire, singing a peculiar song.
Tonight, my plans I make. Tomorrow, the baby I take. The queen will never win the game, for Rumpelstiltskin is my name.
With the name echoing in her ears, Elsie felt hope burst forth like the dawn. As the stars peeked out from their velvet curtain, the little man appeared one final time, a smug smile on his face.
Now, my queen, do you know my name?
Elsie played the game, feigning despair.
Is it John?
She asked, to which he replied with a hearty,
No!
Is it James?
She ventured again, meeting another chuckle and a confident shake of the head. The queen took a deep breath and looked into the man's gleaming eyes.
Could your name be Rumpelstiltskin?
The silence that followed was deep and vast as the ocean. Then, with a shriek of disbelief, Rumpelstiltskin stomped his foot so hard that he split the floor beneath him.
A witch told you that! A witch!
He screamed, and with a puff of smoke and a crackle of flame, he vanished, never to be seen again. Elsie's joy was as boundless as the sky. She embraced her child, knowing that he was safe at last. The kingdom rejoiced, for their queen was wise and kind and had proven her worth beyond gold. The king, who had once loved gold more than anything, had found a new treasure in Elsie and their son. He vowed to be a just and fair ruler and to leave the spinning of straw to the farmers. As for Elsie, she became known as the queen who outwitted a magical being, a queen of heart and mind. Her son grew up with the tale of Rumpelstiltskin in his ears, learning that wit and wisdom are treasures no gold can buy, and that love and family are worth more than all the riches spun by moonlight. And they all lived happily ever after, spinning not straw into gold, but days into memories and stories into dreams. The end.